So, welcome to the Intern Whisperer. My name is Isabella Johnston. This is my show, and we're all about the future of work and innovation. Today's guest is Rey Ortega, CEO of Grata Software. He is a seasoned tech entrepreneur dedicated to easing the transition for those moving from corporate careers to entrepreneurship. Everybody needs you. Okay, his expertise is crafting custom technology solutions to scale brands and facilitate new business ventures. He is also the founder of All-in-One Business Launch Blueprint. You guys will be able to hear more about this in the story he's going to share. Rey provides pivotal strategies for startup success for tech and non-tech businesses. His proven methods have resulted in over 40 million, that's it with an M, in collective revenue for his clients, establishing Rey as a reliable guide in the entrepreneurial landscape. So welcome to the show, Rey.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, I have a question I didn't go over with you.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to ask you. First one. Okay, your name is spelled, just so our listeners know, R-E-Y. Why is it R-E-Y instead of R-A-Y?
Because when I was born, my
Okay.
brother couldn't say my name, so he kept saying it. He couldn't say Reynaldo because that was the name they really wanted. And then when my brother couldn't say it, my dad said, "Look, that name is just too long, Reynaldo Ortega. Let's just cut it down to Rey, R-E-Y, Ortega." And then on top of that, Rey means king in Spanish. So kind of it was like a dual meaning there. And my dad's like, let's go with that. And so that's how it ended up happening. So.
Okay. So you're the firstborn.
I'm the second. I'm the last born. So my brother was my brother was 2 years old at the time.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, you did explain that. Sorry, didn't pick
up.
That's okay. That's okay. It's been a long day. Okay. All right. We always kick off the show where I ask the guests to share 5 words that describe you and why. And you know that you gave those to me in advance. So the first one was loyal. Why loyal?
Anyone who knows me knows that I always, once I like something, I stick with it. I don't really change much. And I do that throughout my whole life. Everything in the business. Once I work with a client, I like that client. I work with that client all the time. I mean, we've had clients that work with us for 7 years and they're still our client. And it's because I hold that very dear. I get that from my dad. Because my dad owned his own business for over 30 years. We're Cuban and we're not mafia, but we kind of have a very mafia-like environment where loyalty is really huge.
Yeah.
You know, I was raised in that environment where like you don't talk crap about, your family members and your friends and you hold that into the public, but then you do everything privately in the corner. And then everything's all about loyalty and being there for the people that, you care for and they care for you, all that kind of stuff.
So no horse head in the bed, but maybe it's money. Or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, because that's what you do is you help people make money.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the next one was hardworking. Well, what I'm gathering, what I've known about you is you're very relational. So yeah. I think that's how I would summarize you, honestly. But hardworking.
Hardworking. Again, anyone who knows me, I'm working all the time. I have a very strong work ethic, again, from my father. So that's just who I am. I do a lot of different things. Not just my business. I also volunteer a lot, and all of that stuff is all because I just don't know how not to work.
Yeah.
I don't know how to.
I understand the feeling.
So yeah,
that is me. Yeah. People go, no, you're already doing 9 things. So no, we're not asking you.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. Caring.
Yeah.
Let's give your mom some credit. Does she get any credit?
Well, no, my mom is just as hard as my dad. Okay. Like my mom, my dad are very similar, extremely similar. So they were both all about work ethic, loyalty, all that kind of stuff. As far as now, the caring part is probably the one that doesn't come from them. The caring actually comes from my wife. So yeah, my wife's the one that got me to care. So when I was younger, I used to be very very like hardcore, like hard worker, like wanted to be rich, wanted to go out, be successful. And I didn't care about anybody except for myself and what I wanted to accomplish. And it wasn't until I met my wife that she kind of made me change that. Once you have kids, I don't know if you've probably heard this story. Once you have kids, you like your whole philosophy changes.
Everything changes.
And so caring ended up being one of those things that I kind of established. And I've been married for 20 years. I have 2 children and one of them's already 22 years old. So I've had children for,
wow.
So, and so I guess for 22 years, I've just learned to care. And now the problem is I care too much. And so sometimes I care to a fault.
You got to dial it back.
I got to dial it back sometimes. For some people, I got to dial it back because some people take advantage of that. But yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There will be some.
Yeah.
So lifetime learner.
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I had worked at Papa John's Pizza, and my manager had dropped out. He went to Dr. Phillips and had dropped out. And he used to tell me, "Oh, you can learn on your own. You don't have to go to a school to learn." So I used to go to Barnes and Noble, and I
Mm.
used to read at Barnes and Noble. So when I wanted to become a programmer, I learned at Barnes and Noble. I didn't go to a college to learn
But
programming.
how could you practice? You
So,
couldn't practice.
well, back then, right, it was just the internet. There wasn't applications really being developed yet,
Oh, I
like
see.
web applications. So, but I read all the books on how to do all of the programming and all that stuff, like software based stuff. Um, so the lifetime learner thing had just became innate at that time. So, and when the internet started coming out with blogs and people were doing tutorials online and all that stuff, I just ate all that stuff up and I never stopped. And then I just realized that, like, even though I did go back to school eventually and I did get my degrees or whatever, I still am always learning. Like, I'm always curious about what's out there. And I'm always constantly trying to learn new things. And now, like, even with AI, I talk to it all day long. Like, if there's something someone tells me and I don't know what it is, I immediately go to the AI and say, "Hey, I don't know what this is. Could someone tell me this?" And that's kind of where my whole philosophy of learning has come from.
So I'm pretty sure, every day we open up this thing. It's called a phone, but
Yeah.
it's not really. It's really a computer and a connection to the world. Every day there's always something, at least 5 things that have changed since you used it the day before.
Yes.
So I cannot imagine anybody not saying they're a lifelong learner.
But you'll be surprised. For years, I've had to tell younger kids, which they're now almost like in college now, almost all these kids. But I used to tell these kids, like, go to Google and learn. Like, they would always, like my daughter or even my daughter's friends, they would always ask, what is this or what is that? I'm like, go to Google. It's right there on your phone.
Google it.
Just Google it. They don't, but the younger generation has a hard time.
I don't know. They use it, but they use it for social use.
They use it for social use, yeah, but definitely not to learn as much.
Mm. Well, they're going to be left behind. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So your last word was put others first.
Put others first. Yes. So, again, something that I was instilled from my wife, putting others first. I feel like when you help a lot of people or you help people first, that tends to come around, and you don't look for it to come around, but sometimes it's just going to come around. And when it comes around tenfold. So sometimes putting other people's first is a lot better than putting yourself first.
I want you to tell us about your education. You've mentioned it in the previous questions, but you didn't say where you went.
Yeah.
I know you did go. Your background, and Barnes and Noble was your library, for sure. And how did you get to where you are? Because didn't you serve in the military? Don't you have a whole backstory that's going on here?
Oh, I did not serve in the military.
Okay. I just feel like you should have.
Yeah, well,
like, I think you should be a chef.
Well, no, it's funny because people have said that to me in the past because my demeanor is very militaristic. So, and that's because I was
very structured.
Very structured. I'm a very structured person. My education really had, like I said, has been Barnes and Noble. That's how it originally started. But at the end of the day, I ended up going to a few colleges to learn all different things. And I went out to the workforce first. So that was my first education. I decided not to go to school and then use Barnes and Noble as my library and then go work. And I was always entrepreneurial because my father was an entrepreneur, had a business for over 30 years. So I went out to basically get street knowledge, I guess you want to call it.
Yeah.
That was my first education. And so while I was doing that, and how entrepreneurs are, you start a business, sometimes you fail, sometimes you'll fail like 10 times. Well, what ended up happening is I failed so many times that I was like, okay, obviously I'm not good at this business thing like my dad is. So maybe I need to be trained in how to do this. So what I ended up doing is I ended up going back to school. So first of all, I went to Full Sail University. That was the first place I went to.
That's a good school too.
And the reason why I went to that one was because I wanted to do something in the music business originally.
What did you want to do?
I wanted to be a producer, record label. I wanted to own like a record label in the music industry. And so what I want to do is I want to learn how the music industry works. So I went to Full Sail, got that degree. I worked for a record label for 6 months. And then I went and ran a recording studio for another year after that. Unfortunately, when you have 2 kids, new kids, by the way, it's really hard to make a living in that industry.
Yeah.
Because you start working at 12 midnight and you finish at like 10 a.m. So I decided, okay, I need to go do something else. So I went back to Valencia College. And so I got my AA degree at Valencia College, and then I did the Direct Connect program into UCF. And when I went to UCF, I said, okay, I want to study business. So I went through the business program. I got a bachelor's degree in business management, but my focus was primarily on new venture financing and new like startups. Essentially, that was my focus. And so I took that information and I said, okay, now I'm going to actually start a business based on all this new information that I got from college. And that's when Grata came about. And so that's how we got to Grata, essentially. So what happened is I was working with several businesses as a freelancer originally. And then what ended up happening is I ended up getting so busy, I had to hire more people, and then ultimately just turned into a business. And the thing that I tried to focus on when I was starting Grata was I was starting with small businesses and other business owners, people that were friends, that were starting businesses, that were interested in it. Because again, it goes back to my family, where it's all about family loyalty, right? And so all of these friends of mine who wanted to start a business, I wanted to see them succeed because I wanted to see them support their families. So I helped them start their businesses and ultimately did all the technical work for them. And then it led to referrals and helping me build Grata software. And so, and then here we are today with Grata software. It was a 7-figure business. So
that's a really good story. So I think that you've been this, I'm going to say it because you may not say it, but I think you've been this hidden secret that should be a part of Starter Studio, that should be a part of Startup Weekend, that, I tried to pull you into the game jams because I know you have a lot of interest in different areas.
Yeah.
So I feel like, you're coming back into the fold. You don't get to be over there doing that, but share your wisdom with so many other people.
Yeah. And it's funny because in 2003, 2004, we talked about it earlier. I was part of the Orlando tech community,
right?
But I was behind the scenes and I was the one going to the events and supporting everybody else, not necessarily partaking. And even to recent, right? If it wasn't for that game jams invitation, I don't think I still was involved in anything, in Orlando tech. And it's not because I didn't want to be involved. It's just because I've been so hard focused on running my business and then helping my clients with their businesses and making sure that I'm taking care of my family. Another part of the story you guys don't know about, nobody really knows about. And I'm going to explain something that nobody knows about.
Okay, we will now.
You're getting like a very exclusive information.
I'm excited.
So in 2012, my youngest daughter was diagnosed with a thyroid cancer. And so when she was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, we didn't have the business yet. I was working at a startup. And when she was diagnosed with that, they had to pull out her thyroid. And then they said, yeah, she had the kind of cancer that kind of spreads. So we had to put her through all of the types of tests and the scanning that you would normally have to do. You would think that's hard enough. That same 2 weeks after she was diagnosed with that my other younger daughter, who was autistic, she's full spectrum disorder autistic. She had a violent seizure at school, had to be hospitalized for a week, and they had to run tests on her and everything. And then they told us that, yes, she has, she's going to be having seizures unless we get her medicated and all this kind of stuff. So you could just imagine that.
That's a lot.
All of that stuff. So we're a family of 4, sole income. I was a sole income. And that's what I was dealing with. Yeah. So essentially the business was a large motivator to starting the business was to be able to afford the medical bills and all the things that we need to take care of for the kids. That's really that. So that's why I was always behind the scenes and not really involved in anything, because I had so much on my plate, just taking care of my family and make sure the business was taking care of my family. So that's one of the reasons why I was always behind the scenes and not in the forefront. Here we are today. My older daughter's married, so we're clear on that.
Yeah.
My younger daughter is 20 years old. And, she, even though she still has her, the medication for her seizures and everything, she's more maintained and taken care of. So we're not struggling with all those things that we did years ago. So that's kind of the reasons why I'm a little bit more free to do extra things lately than I have been in the past. So
it's kind of like, this is your time.
Yes, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where that putting others first, I basically put my family before all of my aspirations.
Well, you had to.
For all those years. Yeah.
Yeah, you absolutely had to. What does your wife do?
So she's at home with my daughter. So autism is a 24/7 job.
It is.
4 hours a day, 7 days a week job. So she's with her every day, all day. And our daughter, even at 20 years old, is still fully disordered in the sense of my wife has to clean her, bathe her, feed her, everything. My daughter basically has no verbal communication and doesn't have that good motor skills. So my wife has to do everything. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yes. So that's kind of what we've dealt with, lived with for the last 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. A caretaker is such an expensive person to have to hire. So it's a big sacrifice for, your wife too. I understand. Wow. Yeah. Really, that's a very inspiring story though for everybody to hear, because, you've had a lot of adversity. and all focused around the things that are truly valuable, your family, right, and health.
Yep.
So, having to deal with that and being able to have something for yourself, it's a big deal.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, so you started Grata. What's the new thing? You mentioned the other thing.
Yeah. So in 2020, during the pandemic, we decided, I personally decided I was going to start going out there, putting myself out there. However, during the pandemic, they shut down all public speaking, all that kind of stuff got shut down. Well, there was an organization that is a startup kind of boot camp type organization out of Chicago. They reached out to us to do guest speaking on virtual events that they had. I was like, let's give it a try. I feel a little bit more comfortable not standing up on a stage, but actually being in my own office. So I took advantage of that. But when we did these presentations, we were doing them in front of hundreds of people in a virtual environment. And they all loved our presentation about how do you scale a business? How do you use technology to improve your business? All that stuff. But when we went out to the breakout sessions, they were like, we can't afford your fees.
Mm.
But if you had like a course or some digital product that was cheaper, that maybe a do-it-yourself type thing, we would be more than glad to get into that, like to buy into that. So that was kind of the market telling us, hey, there's this other thing that we would like for you to build. So we decided, okay, let's do that. And so we ended up calling it learntobuildabusiness.com. That's the new venture. We started basically in October. And the reason why it took a couple of years since the pandemic to start it was because we didn't know exactly what they meant by what they wanted us to give them. And what they wanted was, how do I start a business and how do I use technology to help me start my business?
So you put it in a box
So
or a course.
Yep. We put in a course and we launched it in October as a beta for a few people, and we got customers to sign up. And so now we're just tweaking a few things before we do the actual full launch, which is going to be fully out there. And so what happens is, originally the first people that signed up got like $149 like lifetime access, but it's actually going to be $149 a month membership later when we launch it. So and I still go around, do webinars and presentations, and I still present the $149 all access. It's only until we get done with the product that it's going to be the full price. So people are taking advantage of it now.
No, that's a really valuable tool. Yeah. So I know this show is going to air in end of April. I hope people can still take advantage of that.
Yeah, I think even if we're full price, we'll even offer for people who are listening to the show. Yeah, we'll offer a pilot price to your
all right, listeners, you better say you heard this on the Intern Whisperer if there's another category when you sign up, so he'll know that this is how you heard it. So very cool.
Yeah.
So this whole public speaking thing, do you think you're going to continue with that route? Because that's like, I created a speaker page. Yes. And I'm looking for those speaking opportunities also.
Yeah. So we signed up with, I don't know if you heard of 10X Stages.
Yes.
So we signed up with,
didn't they just do something yesterday?
Yes, just this last weekend. But so we signed up with 10X Stages. We signed up with them in January, really in October, but something happened with the paperwork, whatever. So they started us in January. I've been being coached since October. So I got like 3 months of free coaching.
Oh, wow.
But they've been coaching us. So that story that I told you about my family and everything, they were the ones that told me I need to start telling that story. Yeah. Because once I told them the real situation, because I've hid that.
It's a really good hook.
I've hid that information from people for 10 years. People have always asked, oh, so why'd you start Grata? And I always had this other story, but the real story was that. And so they were the ones that told me I need to start telling that story, and they want me to tell that story. And then on top of that, we're showing people not only like how you start a business, but how we're using now with AI being so popular. Well, the thing is, we're like in the forefront of AI. We've been building AI for our customers for about 4 years, but we've been doing like the different, not generative AI, but the other type, which is like taking the data from your customer and using AI in order to use that data. So we've been doing that. So now that AI is so prominent, they're having us do the public speaking that I'm doing is basically how to launch a business in 7 days using artificial intelligence. And that story is the catalyst to that, so to speak.
That sounds really interesting.
Yes.
Where is this website? Where do we find it?
So if you go, we jokingly had that earlier, but it's learntobuildabusiness.com is the actual site.
Okay. So, well, that's good, because I'm going to make sure that people grab this link also and that they can find it easily. It'll be in our show notes. I'm going to make sure that we do that. Cool. The speaking opportunity, this 10X stages, do they also help you find the paid opportunities?
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah. So it's a very comprehensive training program. It's not cheap. I'll just let you know that it's pretty, it's on the expensive side. However, though, to me, I feel like the value is there because they teach you not only to how to find other people's stages, so that you can, which you would present in you can either do two things that they teach you is either one that you go get paid to do a speaking event, which is not their forte. So if you ever go to 10X stages, they're not going to train you to do that. Their focus is you speak for free and then sell your programs as the pitch at the end of your speech. That's their philosophy. They have this thing called stage value, where like you go out and you speak and how many people you sign up for your program, then however much money that is, that's your stage speaking value. And then that's how you determine how many events you need to get on for a month to generate a certain amount of revenue. So it's very scientific.
Yeah.
So that's how they operate. But they go through all the process of, how to develop your speak, what they call the signature talk. How do you set up your other people's stages appointments, like you're being your own manager.
Yeah.
And then they had this thing called, your own stages, which like you're doing a podcast, right? This is your podcast. This is your own stage. That's what I consider. So that there's so many other digital stages that are very similar. So like a YouTube video is a digital stage. Like, so they do all of that stuff and work you through all that and help you and coach you through that.
Yeah, my show is on YouTube, so it is on video, and then it's also on a download audio. So
that's awesome. Yep.
Well, I appreciate all those little tips. I'll go check it out. I've had a lot of people reaching out to me about, come and learn how to be a speaker and get paid for it. So I know that there's definitely a cost with it. Going back to your business though. Let's talk more about how AI is being used in your Learn to Build a Business. So,
well, the Learn to Build a Business, we're not using AI yet. Or what you mean, what you're talking about is how we're using AI to teach people how to build a business?
Yes.
Okay. So what we're using generative AI, we're using, whether it be ChatGPT, we're using Google's Gemini, or you could use Microsoft Copilot, which is actually just sitting on top of ChatGPT anyways. So it's kind of using ChatGPT again. It's just they have different logic. So you'll get different results. But what we do is we show people, first we go through an actual like step-by-step guide of how do you find the right business based on your why, your purpose, your passion. And then the second step is how to find the right customer based on the business and your purpose and passion. And then the third step is how do you actually market and message those customers appropriately in order to build your business, right? And what we're using generative AI and these prompts that we've built. These are like what we call super prompts. And the super prompts are more of like a programmatic prompt. It's not the same prompt like you would normally type in your chat GPT. Like you could chat with your chat bot and say, I want to learn this, or I want to know this, and yeah, and then keep asking questions. We try to give you a prompt that all of it's included in one big prompt so that when you give it the information, it'll spit out all of the results that you need in order to be able to move forward to the next step.
Oh, that's good.
And then once you get to the end, you'll have a solid mission statement. You'll have a solid, like, this is my belief statement for your passion, your purpose. You'll know exactly what kind of customers you're going to provide the service or the product to, what their pain point is, and then what the result they're going to get by using your product or service.
How accurate is it to find your perfect customer? Because I've had to go through programs and go talk to people, get out of the building and go talk to people to make sure I'm creating a product that is exactly what my customers have as pain points. So how does that help it? Because how are they're not talking to people.
Exactly. So this is the thing. It's no different because you have primary research and you have secondary research.
Yeah, it's like a big Google search.
So everything is a secondary research in this. So that's just like if I went to the public library and I started pulling in all of these databases and started asking questions in the databases and getting these result sets. It's basically we're just removing the need to go to that database. You're just doing it inside of AI because the AI has already learned all of the data, right? So that's what's happened. It's all these AI tools have been fed information for years, and they've been fed more information than we have access to. For instance, just for Grata, I did a marketing report the other day that I was trying to figure out some information as to a particular customer set. It used Gartner's results, Gartner's actual like report, where you have to pay $5,000 for Gartner to get that report. However, I guess Gartner had to deal with Microsoft or OpenAI or whoever allowed them to get all that data into the AI, into the machine learning algorithm. So when I was doing the research, it was feeding me Gartner's report. And I really didn't pay for Gartner's report. I just used ChatGPT. So the accuracy of the data is just as accurate as the data that's out there.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
It'll have, the the crap stuff, and then
It'll have the crap and the good
real,
stuff.
literal, the good stuff too. Yeah.
So one key thing you got to make sure is that you always ask it to cite sources.
Oh, I always do.
And if you do, it'll give you links to those sources, and then you can go check for yourself and make sure that it is a valid source.
Yeah, I always ask for cite sources in anything I do when I do a search. Yeah.
Yep.
That would be foolish not to.
Exactly. But there's people that do, they won't do that, and those copy paste, and they consider that real data, and it's not real data.
So we're going to move to a new question.
Okay.
Your favorite video game you believe everyone should play?
Yeah. Call of Duty.
Why?
So for two reasons. First of all, like actual, what's it called? It's I use this term in basketball. It's like IQ response. So when you're using Call of Duty, it's fast paced, fast moving, and things are happening in real time very quickly. So you have to make decisions really quickly. And I think it's really great if you're trying to improve your IQ in decision making. That's what I love about it. Second thing is motor skills, like the quickness in your motor skills, because of the same reason. Like when you're sitting there, when you're doing a campaign and you're like running around and getting attacked from all areas, your ability to like turn and then hit the trigger immediately, and know when to throw the frag grenades or whatever, like all that stuff, you're doing all that stuff in real time, and it speeds up your ability to make decisions and think really quickly. So I attribute Call of Duty to my ability to play basketball. And I know that sounds crazy. So I coach
real basketball,
real
with the real ball, not video.
Real basketball.
Okay.
I coach youth basketball, high school level basketball. And I go out on the floor and I actually play with the players. Like I run up and down the court with the player, especially for like short one player, I'll jump in the scrimmage. And the thing is, I can make decisions so quickly that like the players can't even see it coming. And so we teach some of these players, like we may not say use Call of Duty, but depending on how old they are, we may say use Call of Duty, but sometimes it's like any game that has that kind of quick reflexes and quick decision making, everything, it actually helps in that. And so that's why I really like that game. And I like that game because I used to play when I worked at Valencia College, and this is a story that nobody knows about. But
okay, well, you need to include this one now.
When I worked at Valencia College, I worked in the IT department, the TV studio, but we were part of the IT department. Well, our studio was blocked off from the rest of the college. Like we were isolated in the library on the third floor, and nobody could get into it through a key card only. And we were the only ones that had the key cards. However, the marketing department was right across from us. So what we would do is every day we would fire up Call of Duty and play the game where we're like playing against each other. And we would do that for lunch and after work every single day for like 3 years.
Oh my gosh.
And so we would play like, and it was funny because we would play. And then Michael, who worked with me, was literally like here's like my room it's like a small studio, right? My small little room. And then he had an editing room next to me. And so and we had our doors closed, and all you hear was, oh, and then, oh, dude, like you hear all these noises. He would actually start cussing out loud and everything, but it was funny. But it was fun just to play against the other teams, and like it was, I don't know, there was some camaraderie to Call of Duty. So that's why I love that game. Yeah.
Well, that's always a really good. I know that there's a lot of fans of that game down at OMG Labs. So I'm going. You're not alone. You're not alone, and it is a very, very popular game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so what would you want to be remembered for? We're going in a completely different direction.
I want to be known for killing a bunch of people in Call of Duty, but now I want to be known for so what I really want to be known for, honestly, is I just want to be known for helping a lot of people get to where they want to get to. Like that's really what I want to be known for. There's a reason why, at Grotto, we take care of our clients and help. Like, for instance, we've had 5 clients get acquired by larger companies. Like, I'm so proud of that. You know what I mean? Like I know they're proud because their company now just made it to that next level. They were able to sell off, do an acqui-hire, whatever. But me, I'm just proud that they got there because that was their dream. That's what they wanted, right?
A big exit.
And so I love that part. And then even when I coach basketball, we sign 30 girls in our program to college scholarships every year.
Wow.
And that's more proud. In fact, to be honest with you, I'm more proud of that than I am on the business side, because that's 30 young, and we coach primarily women basketball players. That's 30 young women that have now gotten to be able to fulfill their dream of playing college basketball, potentially could go to the WNBA one day. Right. So those are the kind of things that I'm more proud of when I see people that I'm helping actually get to that next goal.
Yeah, because you're helping them reach their potential.
Yeah.
And hopefully beyond, because we should never think, oh well, I've arrived, I've done this, I won an Olympic gold medal. We'll just say that's like, is there anything that's higher than that? Well, yes, you could end up being the coach of the next 5 people that win gold medals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I want to be known for that. I think that's more important than anything.
Yeah, I would think so. I agree with you. The funny thing is that that one question, just about everybody says the same type of a response. They want to know that they were able to either help people or, yeah, just help people. And that's how you create a legacy, because
Yeah.
that's what we end up discussing is. So that's the legacy.
And that's true that's that's the legacy.
Yeah.
I know that I want to know that when the day I pass away, I want to know that like there's several people out there that are like, I remember that guy. And I
Yeah.
remember how much he helped me get to where I need to be.
Yeah. Because we are only in this life for, okay, 23,375 days.
Wow.
And when you think about how many, that's 75 years old.
Yeah.
I'm going, 75 years old sounds old to some people, not really. But when I only think of 23,000 days, I go, that's fast.
That's fast. Yeah.
And then I go, how many days do I have left? And then what am I doing with my days?
Exactly.
It's
Absolutely.
just so overwhelming.
That's a great way to look at it. I've never looked
Yeah.
at it that way, but yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great way to look at it. It is fast.
It is fast, because in one day, I can make a difference. But in 1 year, that's a longer, 365 days to be able to make a difference
Yeah.
when you think about it. But one day, I can always choose to make a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to take a break. We're going to go take a break and acknowledge Cat 5 Studios, and we will be right back.
The Intern Whisperer is brought to you by Cat 5 Studios, who help you create games and videos for your training and marketing needs that are out of this world. Visit Cat 5 Studios for more information to learn how Cat 5 Studios can help your business. Thank you, Cat 5 Studios.
So we're back to the second half of our show, where we talk about the future of jobs and industries in 2030. So, Ray, what do you think 2030, what do you think the world will look like in 2030? And then I'll build on that.
Okay.
And that's not that far away.
It's not that far away. I think the way things are going, there's several answers to this. From a technical I want to talk on the technical side.
Mhm.
From a technical perspective, what worries me about 2030 is that we will be at a place where a lot of technology has taken over many of the things that us humans were doing in the past. And I'm worried that there's going to be a lot of people that feel like they've been disenfranchised, and it's going to lead to this separation between human beings.
Yes,
And
me too.
I'm trying to keep it. I don't want to sound like doomsday. You know what I mean? Because
No, that's a concern that I have genuinely, because we have to remind people how to be relational.
Yes.
And how to not take away jobs just because we can.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean we should.
Yeah. And being a technical person and being in a company that is a consultant, a technology consultant, I get in this conversation all the time, because for me, I'm like, yes, I can make a lot of money if I go down the route of Sam Altman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a software engineer by trade. I can do the same work. I can get my team to do the same work. We could do that. 5 years ago, when we started dealing with AI, I could have told my clients to do some of the things that he's building, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm all about people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people are important. Humans are important. And so that's the part that bothers me. And it doesn't scare me. It just bothers me. The reason why it doesn't scare me is because, again, everything goes down to ones and zeros. And I know myself, my team, or anybody that I have working for me or whatever, we're going to figure out a way to fight it. You know what I mean? I know we will. But the problem is that the public doesn't know. So they're being fed all this information that could turn themselves or have them turn on each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what worries me the most, because that's where our society has kind of been going for the last 8 years. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
So that worries
Well, I usually tell people I'm a Jesus girl with a potty mouth, but I sit here and I know, what the Bible says. And I sit here and go, yeah, those days are coming fast.
me.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty good. Okay, so you touched on the industry. We have low code and no code. You're in software development.
Yeah.
How people are different from what's out there is the fact that we do have creativity, and you can code something and it can build it and it can do those things, but not everybody is meant to be a programmer. So using low code or no code tools helps people to create things more quickly.
Yeah.
You do have to have a logical mind, though, to be able to organize.
Well, and you have to have a logical mind. You have to have a logical mind. But the thing is, I don't know if you've read we talked about this earlier before we even started the podcast. There's been articles out there that are showing that now a lot of these tools are actually fake. They're not actually doing what they say they're doing. Yeah. The problem when you're using low code, no code solutions is that someone has to own the data and the information. And the problem is you don't, if you're using that tool. Right. That's actually I was at the Florida Venture Forum event. They had an event a few weeks ago. Now, Florida Venture Forum is a group of people that are venture capitalists that invest in a lot of the major companies all across the United States. But this specific one is Florida and Central Florida. They're part of a larger consortium that's more national, but this was the Florida one. They were talking about companies they were looking at investing in. One of the biggest things they said, someone asked the question about low code, no code. How are they investing in low code, no code? And the guy basically says, we're not. He says, because low code, no. He goes, you can't tell me you're a tech company and not own your own tech. If you're using low code, no code, you don't own your own tech. One of the top investors from, I believe it's called Dream Capital.
Yep.
Dream Capital. She mentioned that low code, no code is really great when you're starting something and you're trying to do like a prototype or trying to get an idea out there. Right. But once you're starting to look at scaling and becoming like a real company with intellectual property, that is not the right solution. So that's how I see as a software engineer, as a company that consults with other companies, we use low code, no code for prototyping. But then after that, we basically tell them you need to build your own customized solution, because when it comes to value of your business, you need to have a customized solution, because no one's going to pay for the low code, no code solution, because you don't own it. You don't own the tech. Like if you have a bug, you got to call the company. They got to fix it. Right. But if you have a bug in your own software, then it's easy. You just have a programmer look at it, fix it immediately.
Yeah.
So that's my whole thing about low code, no code, and where that's going. And,
Okay. So we touched on what 2030 jobs might look like. So for some extent in 2030, which is, we're not even counting 2030. It's only 5 years away.
Yeah.
And I had read, there was something that came out. Oh, I can't think of the channel. But I think it was Elon Musk had said that he believes that the AI code will surpass human knowledge in 2 years.
Yes.
So I'm going, well, there's that.
Yeah.
Just because it's surpassing human knowledge, that doesn't mean that it's a human, because humans, how we differentiate is our creativity, our ability to know right from wrong.
Exactly.
Because code may not know right from wrong.
Yep, exactly. So I have this conversation all the time with people, because the thing with artificial intelligence, everything boils down to a 1 or a 0, right? True or false.
Yep.
Everything boils down to that, because that's exactly how chips work, right? It either opens a gate or closes a gate. So it needs to be a 1 or 0. So the thing with AI and what they're talking about is, if let's say you and I, if let's say we're teaching artificial intelligence, we're teaching a machine learning algorithm between right and wrong. We go to a cocktail party. Someone doesn't look good, but you're respectful. You're going to say, hey, you look pretty today, right? You just lied.
Yep.
The machine learning algorithm is going to say, you're a bad person. You just lied. They're not going to understand the nuance of why you lied, that you lied for good reasons, right? Because it doesn't have it doesn't have reasoning, it doesn't have the ability to understand reasoning. And there are a lot of people who have never touched code, never touched AI. They're out there all over social media. They're like, oh, it's going to learn. It's going to get better as it gets better. Those are people that don't know how to code. And those are people that don't know how to build AI. If you understand how AI is built, it's a 1 or a 0. There is no reasoning. There is no 0.5 or 1.5, or, in this, it's all a mathematical equation, and the math is either 1 or 0. Did you lie? You're a bad person, because that's what the machine learning learned. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect movie that came out years ago that showed this is the movie Stealth. I don't know if you ever remember that. So it's about the government building a fighter plane that was fully AI capable. And in this one event, the AI pilot, the AI plane is flying side by side with a human plane, right? Human run plane. And they're about to attack a target. And the commander says, you need to basically launch the missile to the target. Well, the guy was like, well, the data shows that there's a lot of innocent people that are going to die from this. So he basically goes against his order, and the plane learns that. And the whole premise is that the plane now no longer takes orders from the commander, because it learned from the human to not take orders. So now the plane has its own idea and concept of what it needs to do in order to solve a problem. And it goes against everything that the commander is telling them to do. And that ends up being the premise of the whole movie. How now they have to kill it. They have to shoot down the plane, but the plane's smarter because it knows everything. It's been taught everything. So basically they're going after this plane that's making its own decisions because it learned from the human that guy didn't listen to his commander. So it's okay now for me not to listen to my commander. And it didn't matter what the reasoning was. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that movie showed that back then. And then the funny thing is we're experiencing that today. I don't know if you know, but Facebook years ago actually did build an AI that would self-generate itself, self-code
No,
itself.
I didn't know that.
And it basically started coding in a language that nobody could understand. Only it understood its own language. So Facebook had to pull the plug because they realized it was basically building itself and excluding any human interaction or any human control. So Facebook's already tried this. That's why, and Sam Altman, that's why he wanted to raise trillions of dollars to build an AI that's basically self-functions on its own and builds itself. And that's the part that I'm totally against, because we've already seen the result of that. Facebook shut it down. They were smart enough to shut it down and never put it back on.
So Microsoft owns OpenAI, right?
They're the largest investor.
Yeah, the largest investor in it. And one of the things, so I don't know if this is insensitive, so I'm going to throw it out there and you'll tell me if it is or isn't. The things when you were describing what AI can do, it's, it knows 0, 1, and there's right and wrong, and all of these things. It reminds me of working with a person that's autistic, because they have a very high ethics meter, because they know what is wrong and they will not do it. And they will call me out on it. And I love that. I'm not saying that's bad. I think it's wonderful, because I'm going, oh, this is great. And so I've got, a person around me that's going to help me stay accountable.
Yeah.
So there's this one aspect, and I don't know if that's insensitive. So I'm apologizing to anybody that may think that it was. It's not. It's just saying that it's
just a reference point. It's just a reference point.
Yeah, a reference point.
But that's exactly the situation that we're in with AI. With the current situation with AI, I don't know if you guys, if just to give a brief understanding, is generative AI isn't actual intelligence. No. Generative AI is a mathematical calculation.
Yeah.
All it's doing is it's using a calculation of what's the probability of this word being next to this word. That's all it's doing. It's just doing the calculations of a lot of different parameters in a split second, but that's all it's doing.
Fast math.
So the thing is, at the end of the day, what it's telling you may not really be correct at all, because it's just, if you fed in bad information, then the mathematical probability of certain words being next to each other are going to be words that are not supposed to be next to each other. And then that's the output that you're going to get. So a lot of this stuff is still in the air. That's why 2030 is a long way, in my mind, when it comes to things getting really too bad. But you just never know, because there are people that are only working on algorithms in order to build newer algorithms to be more accurate. Like even Google Gemini. So when we were part of the Gemini beta program that came out recently, because we were using it for a tool that we were building. And so Google gave us the beta access. And then they sent us a sheet that basically says, we've improved Gemini. This is what happened. So as reasoning went up in percentage, mathematics went down. So just like in humans, right? People who are smarter at math, who are not that smart in reasoning. People are very, and what I mean by reasoning is like, more of like the comprehension, and English comprehension and vocabulary and communication, right? It's the same concept in AI. So the higher the mathematics, the less the reasoning. The higher the reasoning, the less the mathematics.
Mhm.
So it gives in one area,
Mhm.
right? So it's very similar to humans.
So this leads into something that I've talked about on a lot of shows. Back on October 8th of last year, 2023, Jeffrey Hinton was interviewed by 60 Minutes about AI. He's called the godfather of AI. He had said that he had a lot of concerns. He used to work for Google, left
Mhm.
Google. One of the ways in which these types of systems might escape control is by writing their own computer code to modify themselves. You said it yourself earlier. And that's something that we all need to worry seriously about. And I would agree with it, because
100%.
I mean, I don't know how old this movie is, but 2001 Space Odyssey.
Yeah, I've never seen that movie.
I have
Everyone
never seen
references
it.
it.
I only know this one scene where
Yeah.
the computer is talking to him, the woman's voice.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to shut it down. Boom, boom, boom. And that's been some of the big concerns. And I know we're kind of blending a whole lot of things together.
Yeah.
Some of the big concerns are that, well, it can be something that is even to the point of being predatory, of saying, no, we will not allow these people to get houses. We will not discriminate for sure, but
Discriminate, yeah.
even somewhat predatory.
Yeah.
No, we will not allow them to be able to get bank accounts, and
Exactly.
medical records. Like, think of all of the things that could shut down a society, the world, more than COVID, more than 9/11, more than when AI first came out.
Yeah. Well, because in our society, all the data is already biased.
Yeah.
So if we're training stuff to be biased, I mean, there's no way to train it without being biased. If all the data is biased, how do we train it to not be biased?
Well, I have thoughts about that.
I feel like to do that, but the funny thing is, someone told me this the other day. He's like, well, in order for you to train it not to be biased, you have to train it bias, because you have to reverse the bias. So you have to train it more bias, just in the opposite direction.
Maybe. I mean, that's one way.
That was the philosophy that they told me. And if you think about it logically, it makes sense.
But I think that if you take some of the parameters, and maybe a lot of parameters, and you make them blind, then you cannot have the bias.
I wonder how that would work.
I don't know. I'm going to let you
Because
know.
I feel like all those parameters are necessary, because those are the parameters that you need in order for it to even come up with a decision.
Well, this is where I think that you blend. There's a movie, it's on Netflix, Unconscious Bias or Conscious Bias. I think it's called Conscious Bias,
Okay.
but we'll go with Unconscious Bias. And it's all about facial recognition and how they have cameras everywhere around the world. And the people that created it were white. And so it identifies with the white characteristics, but it does not pick up on anybody that's of color.
Yeah.
So then it begins to profile those that are of color and go, oh, this is the terrorist.
Yeah.
And it could be
That's
anybody.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you should watch it. It's really, really good.
I will.
I'll send it to you.
That sounds interesting. I really will.
It was an MIT experiment, honestly, because MIT students were given a budget, here's $10,000, go do this.
Yeah.
And so the student had realized that the facial recognition that's coming out on TikTok and on Instagram, where they're putting like little cute cat faces on it,
Yeah.
it was actually being used to gather the information to profile people.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Scary.
could definitely see that being used, but I would think that would be more of a government move than anything. But
yeah, but it was a lot in China.
Oh yeah, it's China.
Yeah, a lot in China. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that. Well, how do you see that AI is being used positively? Because we've been the dark side, and I don't know about you, but on Netflix there is also the other series that they have on there, Black Mirror. So terrifying.
Yeah, that is a terrifying. I think I watched the first 3 or 4 episodes.
Oh my God. I watch them, and I always have to watch them and I go, okay, I can only watch one, because it's kind of like watching the Twilight Zone, the old school Twilight Zone, or an Alfred Hitchcock thing, because I like those super scary things, psychological thrillers like that. Going, oh my God, they're so bad.
Yeah. But to answer your question, I mean, we are using it positively, like we do, like our clients. And the way I see it is so we're doing business to business use of AI, and it's basically for our client specific needs. So for instance, perfect example, right now we're in the middle of working with a company that's building a healthcare AI tech that helps to determine how much workplace violence happens at hospitals. So medical facilities have the largest workplace violence issues, obviously, because
Why
of
is that?
patients, because of patients that come in that have different medical needs. Sometimes it's just, they're, infused with alcohol, drugs, or whatever. They tend to be very violent towards the nurses or the doctors or whatever. So they get a lot of these events, and these events end up hurting the hospital's ability to do their job. And it also hurts like keeping nurses and keeping doctors, because once they get assaulted,
They don't want to
they don't want to go back. So we're working on a tool that essentially will take all of this workplace violence data that's being inputted in by nurses and doctors, and determining based on certain parameters, what is the at this specific moment, what is the percentage of probability of a workplace violence event happening?
Mm-hmm.
And if so, this is not the AI part, that's the machine learning part. The AI part is once you have all that data, then you can determine how to staff, right, based on that. So the system will be able to determine and provide the information back to the hospital of, you need to have this many staff for these specific days, because these are the ones that we've determined are the high probability of workplace violence events. And these are the type of events. So therefore you need to be careful for this or that. You know what I mean? So it's basically helping.
Something like that being used in education. Like, what are the chances of your school being under attack by some kind of a student that's inside or somebody outside, right?
Yeah.
Or a church, or pick a venue, because they're everywhere.
But that's the positive side. That's what I think is the positive side of AI. It's using it in order to help improve the environment and protect, right? And then even in a business to business, when it comes to like profitability for a company, or even for a nonprofit, right? For them to be more efficient, right? I could see those as being positive uses of AI, right? And that's kind of what we focus on. We try, like I tell people, look, we're not here to replace employees. We're here to make their jobs more efficient, so that they can do the work that you actually hired them to do. Because you can imagine how many people get hired, like they're an accountant, but then they're doing like all of this mundane daily paperwork stuff and not even doing the accounting.
So what that eliminates then, here's the other side, that eliminates those entry-level positions that would do the mundane work to be able to build up years of experience where you become a senior level accountant. So
That's
how do
true.
we accelerate the ability in humans to capture that, the skills, the cognitive skills, to make it equal to years of experience?
So I would agree with you that is a problem, or that is one of the results of it. As far as it being a problem, I'm not sure, because in today's world, everyone's coming in. There's a lot of people coming in that they don't want the entry level position. They want to be paid the accountant position.
Yeah, with no experience.
So we're finding people are just staying home and not working, or they're working at other jobs, or they're doing like side gigs, like.
Or you're getting people that are offshore. You're placing, this is what I've seen the trends to be. I'm putting somebody in the Dominican Republic. I have an employee there. We're going to hire people that are over there because they want to work with Americans, and they are willing to do my hours, my time zone, and observe my holidays instead of whatever. That means there's going to be less Americans that the clock is ticking on this, is what I've said to some people. I go, it's going to happen where you're not going to get six figures. You better figure out how to live on a reasonable salary.
Absolutely.
Because the global economy is going to balance itself out.
I was telling programmers this the whole time in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Because the gravy train for programmers was amazing for like the last 8 years.
Yeah. It's going to stop at some point.
And I told him, I said, listen, you can't come straight out of college asking for $150,000 salary.
Six figures.
It's just impossible. And they're like, oh, what do you mean? I'm always going to be needed. AI comes in.
That's foolish.
Companies start going, ooh, well, I can have my junior level programmers use AI to help them build their programs, because I'm not going to lie, I've used ChatGPT to help me in my programming, because I just don't want to do the mundane programming. Like, I'm a high level thinker. I don't want to sit there and be like, let me build out this HTML page with CSS. Let me build out the very basic structure of this application that I'm building. I'm like, no, ChatGPT, I give it the exact requirements. Like if I were to talk to a developer and it gives me the code, and because I'm a programmer, I can fix all the little things that it messed up on, which are very little, not much.
Yeah.
And then I can generate all the code that I need. And then I go, okay, now I'm going to do my high level stuff. Now I'll do my algorithms or my ways I'm going to pull data out of the database and do all that stuff. So like, perfect example, I was asked a question. So the program that I coach basketball in, they were doing a tryout. all they asked was, is there a way on our spreadsheet we can get a photo of every player, like on the spreadsheet? And so that after tryouts, we can just look at their photos because we're not going to remember all their names.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could build an app like that. I could build an app for you. So in 7 hours, I knocked out an app that the players show up to tryouts. They fill in their information on a mobile phone. They take their own photo. It goes up to a database in the cloud. And then all the admins had to do was basically go to the web page, log in, and they had a whole spreadsheet already of everything. Everybody that was at tryouts, their number, their name, their phone numbers, their parents' information, everything needed, and then the photos of every single one of them.
Yeah.
And I did that in 7 hours, and ChatGPT helped me with about half of it.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Now, if you weren't a programmer, it probably would have taken you a few days. But because I know how to program, I just gave it the requirement.
And how long have you been programming?
25 years.
Yeah. So see, I think that's significant because people that, I interview students all the time, right? And they go, okay, I'll ask them, what programming languages do you really know? Like on a scale of 1 to 5, you really know HTML and CSS. And I go, okay, that's like breathing. All right. tell me what it is that you really know, like on a MERN stack or Python or tell me, what do you know? And they go, well, I don't know those yet. Or they'll say that they list all of the languages that they've had as a course, or maybe read the word is what I'm seeing sometimes. I go, okay, but that doesn't mean you know it.
Exactly. By the way, you want to know a big trick? In order to really finding out if someone knows anything, tell them when they say, oh, I know MERN stack, say, okay, well, build me a scaffold of your very first MERN stack application and make it render. Like make it funny. Like hand it to, like, you don't have to build.
No, I understand what you're saying.
You don't have to build anything else. Just launch it from scratch, build out a MERN stack.
And how long do you think that should take?
Well, the thing is, me as a professional, and MERN stack, by the way, uses Node.
I know.
That takes
MongoDB.
It takes hours.
Express, Node, yes.
Because they'll find out really quick. Your Node version has to be right. The NPM has to be right. All the packages that you download have to be right. And they're not, if they may be deprecated packages, then you have to go what I call NPM hell, because that's what it's called. Because you type in NPM install and then whatever the packages that you need. And sometimes those packages are not kept. So you spend most of your time just putting the environment together that you're going to package to give it to the rest of your developers to start working.
Yeah.
So if someone can do that part, then they know their stuff.
Yeah.
They could program it later. Like you don't have to worry about the programming.
That is a really good tip. I appreciate that. And I'm sure my listeners will too.
That's a big deal because that's what happens. Most of the people coming out of college, they're used to already getting a prepackaged framework.
Yes, because they don't have to think.
They don't have to build it out. They just have to start doing the coding piece. And the coding actually becomes the easier part. The hard part is building the actual scaffold of the whole package and then being able to actually like launch it onto a server. And if they don't know how to do those two things, then chances are they're just what I call they're just a script writer. They're just like they're not a true programmer. They're just a script writer.
Yeah.
Because that's the hard part.
That is a really good tip.
So every time I hire someone, the first thing I do is I send them a thing. I said, all right, I need you to build me. So we use Angular. So and we don't use Mongo. We use MySQL. So, but we do but similar. We'll do like a mean stack.
Yeah, I know.
Some of that. And I'll be like, hey, I want you to put together a mean stack with the basic scaffolding and make it so that I can be able, if I pull it from your GitHub, I can just run it and it works. And when I say that, they're like, okay. And then they're like all confident and they do whatever. And then I pull it in GitHub and I have NPM errors everywhere. And I'm like, none of the Node packages match up. Oh, they do on my computer. I say, yeah, but they don't do on mine.
Yeah.
It's like, and why is it? It's like, well, because on your README file, you're not telling me what node I have to have. You're not telling me what NPM I have to have. You're not telling
me
what version of Angular that I have to have. You're not telling me all of that stuff. And all that stuff, you would know that if you had experience.
Yeah.
So
that's a really good test. I love that. I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that as an interview question and then also as an assessment.
It's a great interview question. Like you could just say, hey, what would you do if I told you I need a mean stack right now? How would you put that together? And then just let them go through the process.
You said mean stack.
Mean stack. So mean stack for us is because of Angular. We use Angular instead of React.
So MEAN.
MEAN, yeah.
Instead of MERN.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's really good. Well, we've talked about a lot of things that were in there. We're so hard to believe, but we're at the end of the show.
Oh, wow.
So what is the best mentoring advice that you want to share with our listeners?
It's funny now that we just talked about it. I said the best mentoring advice is make sure, and I will tell you this from my experience in 25 years in the industry, and this goes for everything, not just technology. Deep dive. Always deep dive into everything you're trying to learn. If you just learn the surface, you may be able to get in the door, but they're going to find out real quick that you don't know what you're doing. You want to be able to deep dive into everything. In fact, one of the pillars of Amazon, because I actually went through the Amazon Web Services interview years ago, one of the biggest pillars they have is you have to be a deep dive type person. You have to be that person that has to ask, why does this work?
Mm-hmm.
Then when they tell you that answer, then why does that work?
Mm-hmm.
And dive deeper and deeper and deeper, because those are the big companies. They want those type of people.
Oh, yeah. I want somebody that can take something off of my shoulders, that we are like in sync, like we're ballroom dancers, and that can really come in and go, she has been my problem. So how do I work around the problem to still get something to me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing. Being a deep diver, problem solver. If you become that, I literally tell people I am a lifetime problem solver.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what I do, I always will be the guy that I'll find out the answers. I'll find out what the problem is. I'll find out what the answers are, and then I'll find out why the answers are the answers. So
I love you, Ray. I think you're awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. So how can our listeners contact you? Now we're going to give them the gradasoftware.com website, and then the learn to build a business link.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take forever to find it.
Exactly.
Through your ClickUp is what you said?
ClickFunnels.
ClickFunnels. Yeah. I'm not so convinced about ClickFunnels.
So my email is everyone can.
Okay. I'm going to tell you, be really careful, because you end up getting a lot of spam.
Oh, I get that now anyway.
So I also give them your LinkedIn. So I don't know.
You can do. The problem is I get so much spam on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I get hit up on LinkedIn more than my email.
I get a lot of email, and then I just report it as spam, and then it goes away. I don't see it.
I don't mind email, because I read every email, even if it I even go through the spam. I even go through the spam ones, because you'll be surprised at how many things from how many tools that you use sometimes will go to the spam folder.
Oh no, I do too. Yeah. But I don't read every email. I will read the title. I will, read the headline.
Well, that's what I mean. I read the headline. I don't read every one. I just read the headline.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's why email's fine for me. So
okay. So then what's your email?
Rey, REY.
Okay.
At Grata, GRATA software.com.
Okay. So there we go. We've got your email. And then would you like us to include your Facebook, your X, and your Instagram?
Sure.
Okay, we will do that. That's what people will see on the close card.
Yeah.
And then they have all of this, and we put it in the show notes too.
Yeah. And if you're from the show, if you're contacting me from the show, just put in the show in the subject line. And then I'll know it's coming from the show.
Excellent. Thank you so much. It's been delightful having you. I've learned so much. I always like talking with you, though. So good.
No, it's really good. I really appreciate the opportunity and actually being on your podcast finally.
Yeah. You are a big milestone maker here right now.
There you go.
Thank you to our sponsor, Cat 5 Studios. Our video editor is Max Stein. Our music is by Sophie Lloyd. Visit www.e4c.tech to learn how you can recruit, assess, and improve employee learning and your company culture through DEI skills, hiring, and learning. Become an E4C member today. Mention you listen to the show, and you may get the chance to become a guest on the Intern Whisperer podcast. You can support the Intern Whisperer by sharing, commenting, liking, and subscribing on YouTube or your favorite podcast streaming apps.